This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, and welcome to Dream Power Radio. This is a place where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love and rediscover the truth of who you really are. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a way to get insights into issues that are bothering us? Well, if you've listened to this program for a while, you already know you can. That's right. The answer is within you by paying attention to your dreams. But you don't have to wait until a random dream sends you these messages. You can actually fine-tune your practice by a process called dream incubation. And we're going to talk about that today with Kelly Lydick, the author of the book, Dream Incubation for Greater Self-Awareness, a handbook. Kelly's been working with dreams for decades through her company, Waking the Dream, and she's written extensively on dreaming and wellness. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Debbie. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Kelly, because I loved having shows about dreams, and I really liked having this opportunity to really take that deep dive into dream incubation. But before we talk about that, I just want to ask you this. Why are dreams important to you?
Oh boy, that's a big question. Why are my dreams important to me? Because I think that when we engage with the dreamscape, we have access to not just our own subconscious, but also the higher self as well as the collective unconscious. And I feel like there's such a vast pool of information there that possibility becomes, nearly infinite. And that feels really exciting and really refreshing and freeing and hopeful for me.
Yeah, I love the possibilities of hope dreams create.
Yes.
Yeah. When I first got into dream work, I learned about different categories of dreams like precognitive dreams and nightmares and such. But you see dreams as being just in two categories, daily processing and quantum. So tell me, what defines these dreams, and do we deal with them in different ways?
I think so. I think that when we see in our dreams elements of different things that come from our waking life, that would be something that I would include in the daily processing. And sometimes it can just be a little snippet. The dream does not have to look or parallel what happened in the waking life, but we can just sort of see snippets or symbols or just individual elements, right, in a bigger dreamscape. And I still think that that's part of daily processing, because part of what occurs in the daily processing is not just anything that would happen in the memory and the storage, but also anything that you're feeling. Right. And so sometimes if we have a challenging circumstance, or we have a stressful day, perhaps a change in job, or, something happened with family, we might feel some of the emotional ups and downs, or the different emotional frequencies. And so that comes into the daily processing dreams. And then I feel like everything else, if we can camp it that way, becomes quantum, because we're really looking at dreams that are going into perhaps another dimension, or looking at lucid dreaming, right? I kind of see the quantum as boundaryless, if I could say it that way. Maybe that's a good way to put it, where we have all kinds of possibility, and we're not just sort of tethered to the world or the dreamscape that we know well, or the dreamscape that might actually parallel the waking life. The quantum really just opens up, I think, the rest of the dreaming world into everything that we could include, perhaps dreaming of a deceased loved one, either. Anything like that is beyond sort of the physical or the waking life that we would define it or encapsulate it that way.
So when you're looking at those dreams in two different categories, when you're trying to understand them, do you use a different process to understand them, or is it the same process?
I think the process can be the same, but I think within the dreamer, I think the distinguishing factor comes down a lot of times to feeling and how you feel during the dream. If you're lucid dreaming, you might have very strong awareness of what you're feeling in the dream, right? But also upon waking, what is the feeling when you're awakening back into the waking life, right? Does it feel like a big dream, what Jung would call a big dream? Does it feel like it has a lot of magnitude? Do you feel the emotional resonance coming through from the dream into the waking life as you're waking? And I think that those are often clues to the big dreams, right? The quantum dreams that bring us into these other realms, other dimensions, other possibilities.
Okay, now let's talk about dream incubation, because I said we were going to, so let's do that. And your process for achieving the best results. And one thing that you recommend that I thought was kind of unique is something that you call an incubation container.
Yeah.
So what is this, and how does it work to promote the dreams you want to have?
Yeah. So dream incubation has been around for a long time, and there have been different iterations over the years with the dream incubation process. And what I have found and what has been taught to me by one of my teachers, Denise Lynn, is to use a container. And the container is not just a symbolic container, but it's actually a physical container, right? In this way, we're really looking at maybe blurring the boundaries a little bit between waking and dream life in the symbolic object of the container itself. Symbolically, it functions to contain the energy, right? It helps to give us a visual cue of the energy behind the intention of the incubation statement or question. So when we have a piece of paper and we have our incubation statement or question that we've written down onto our small slip of paper, we fold it up and we put it into the incubation container. We put the lid on it. So now we've really contained it in a finite space where it can become more empowering. It can be charged, so to speak. It is really held in a succinct space, a concentrated space. I think that's really the goal of having the container, is to concentrate the energy so that it inherently becomes more powerful, right? It's kind of like putting a lid on, some kind of running water and containing it. We're really kind of building like a pressure cooker almost, this incubation container where the energy can then help through the dreamscape.
Okay, well, we've talked about the container. Now we have to talk about what you actually put inside the container, which would be your intention, what you want to incubate in the dream that you want to have. So when you are creating this intention, does it make a difference if you phrase it as a question or as a statement?
I think it does, because I think that the way that the mind interprets the language, it's either, when you make a statement, you're really giving a command. Tonight, I will dream about fill in the blank, journeying to a meadow where I am bestowed upon creativity for my next book, something like that, right? So that's really a statement or a command. When you phrase it in the form of a question, you're really providing more of an open gateway for anything to come through. We don't know, right? When we set an intention, we're setting an intention for a specific response, right? We want a response to the question. We don't necessarily know what that response will be, number one. And number two, we don't know what form it will take. So I think that distinguishing between the response itself and the form that it will take in terms of the symbols of the dream, they're distinctive, and they're also very important when it comes to the analysis or the interpretation of the dream, because what you would derive from one symbol is going to be completely different than what you would derive from something else. So when you form the intention in an interrogatory, right, in a question, then you're really kind of giving your subconscious or giving the higher self a blank canvas. Whereas with a statement, you're commanding, or you're sort of dictating in a way, this is what is going to happen. So they are different in that one is active and one is receptive.
And when you're phrasing it as a question, how specific does the question have to be? Or do you want to keep it open-ended, or you want to just say, I want being very specific about it?
I think it depends. And sometimes what we do in the coaching sessions when I work with clients is that the incubation, the questioning process becomes iterative, meaning that we might ask one question, we'll get an answer in the dream, we'll look at the symbols, and then we'll ask a deeper question about that same topic. And so I think it really depends on what a person is working on within themselves on any given point, what kinds of self-awareness that they're looking to achieve, right? Some people use dreams strictly for creativity, and that's what they want to incubate on. Some people are really looking to dig deep and do some of the shadow work, which is what starts to come from this book, in that we're really looking at uncovering the things that we don't know about ourselves, looking to deepen our awareness of who we are as human beings and why we're here and what are we doing, right? What are we manifesting and what are we bringing to the waking life, and how can we enhance that by our greater self-awareness through the dream time? So I think it really depends on where the individual is with all of those things in mind, so that we can continue to create sort of a building process. That iterative process builds and creates a greater expansion with each use of the self-awareness. And so we build and we build and we expand upon that as we go. Everybody is going to kind of start in a different place too, with that in mind, right? Some who are maybe beginners, or some who have been working with dreams for quite some time, they might have different questions and they may be seeking different types of answers because they're just at a different point in their own explorative process.
Mm-hmm. Understand that. Okay. Another thing that you stress is the idea of non-attachment. So can you explain what that means and how it can affect how you see a dream?
Yeah. That piece is really important. And I think sometimes the non-attachment piece is almost more challenging for people to grasp or to be able to actually do it. It really comes from this idea lending from the Buddhist tradition, which is having your emotions be detached from a certain outcome, right? Meaning if you're asking for an answer to, what is my next best career step? If you really have your heart set on, becoming a marine biologist, let's say, and you're asking an open-ended question during the dream incubation process, you may have an emotional attachment to becoming a marine biologist, in which case that may preclude some of the other answers that may come through. So it may set up a block, for starters. But another thing that can happen is that you may just, you may not get the best right answer for you when you're already attached to something else. So let's say the message that's trying to come through is that, maybe marine biology is not the best thing, but it could be something similar or related, like, let's say, zookeeping. I don't know, I have animals in my mind today. So let's say this person has their attachment to becoming a marine biologist, but really the dreamscape wants to provide that message of zookeeping, right? Then that message might not be heard or might not be interpreted. The symbols of the dreams may not be interpreted in the best way to come to the answer that's trying to come through, right? So when you have your attachment set on the marine biology, and let's say another animal comes in, you might interpret it as, oh, this is correct. This is affirming my desire to become a marine biologist, when really it's saying, no, this is about zookeeping, which is similar, right? But not exactly the same path. At least it wouldn't be for a career. So having the non-attachment leaves the door open for whatever answer it is. Because sometimes, and well, I would say most often actually, the answer that we are receiving is maybe not necessarily one that we could guesstimate ahead of time. So when we're writing that question, we're not thinking necessarily of what that correct answer, that right answer for yourself would be, because we can't necessarily conceive of it in our minds. And so when we create the attachment, we shut down those possibilities. And so staying in non-attachment, meaning, I'm going to be open to whatever's going to come up. I'm not going to have a preconceived notion. I'm not going to apply my limiting beliefs to this question. I'm not going to look at this as something that I already know the answer to, right? To prescribe the answer while you're trying to bring in new information from the incubation, but rather leaving it as a blank canvas, leaving it completely open to whatever is going to come through, and then relying on the symbols and the interpretation to then decode whatever the message is from the dream. It's a hugely important part of the incubation process. And I think it becomes rather difficult on the interpretation side of things when you're looking at the dreams when you have an emotional attachment to something.
It's a very important point, and I want to pursue this, but we have to take a short break now. We are speaking about dream incubation with Kelly Lydick, and we'll be right back. If you're not pleased with the trajectory of your life, the time to begin your own personal transformation is now, and your dreams can help pave the way. How? By tapping into your unvoiced confidence. What is unvoiced confidence, you say? It's the acceptance of your abilities and qualities. It's a state of mind coming from liking and even loving yourself, and feeling free to say or do anything you want without concern for the judgment of others. You were born confident, but may have had it chipped away little by the negative self-beliefs you've picked up over the years. If you're looking for the heightened energy, clarity of thought, and the feeling of being more alive that comes from self-confidence, you can rediscover it by paying attention to your dreams. Need some help doing this? Go to my website, thedreamcoach.net, and sign up for my complimentary dream discovery session. I can help show you how your dreams can help you return to the confident person you were always meant to be. Again, go to thedreamcoach.net. thedreamcoach.net.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're talking about dream incubation with Kelly Lydick. Well, Kelly, right before the break, we were talking about the whole idea of non-attachment, and got me thinking that if you are grappling with a problem and maybe the answer that would be correct for you is going to involve some hurt. Maybe you have to break off a relationship and hurt somebody, or maybe hurt yourself, or realize a part of yourself has to change.
Yeah.
Is there a way in phrasing the questions that can help promote the non-attachment so that you're not sort of programming the answer you want to have?
Yeah, I think that keeping the language open, meaning please, it could say, what is the next best step? What is the next best action? So you're not really saying, is it correct for me to quit my job? That's very definitive, as a definitive actionable step and then a definitive outcome. But rather, what is the next best step? What is the next best action? What is the next best approach? Right? Could I approach it from an emotional space? Could I, right? So you're really looking at leaving it open to whatever's going to come through the dreamscape. That's right. And that promotes the non-attachment in it. When we begin to get more granular, right? When we're becoming more specific with the language, then we're also narrowing down the direction and then therefore the outcome.
Let's say you're grappling with several issues going on in your life and you want to use dream incubation to help figure them out.
Yeah.
How do you decide which the best one to focus on, or when you incubate a dream, or how would you approach that?
That's a really great question. And what I'm hearing is you're saying, how do you really prioritize, especially if, let's say, there's three things that are linked together. Let's say it's a career choice, but it's an interstate move career choice, and you're also looking to travel more or something. So you're looking at these three things, and maybe all of that impacts your finances. So I would probably break it out kind of in order of importance or in order of impact. So with that particular scenario that we're exemplifying, I might first approach the interstate move because that's the bigger piece, and sort of the other pieces are kind of cascading from there. So I might incubate first on that, and then incubate next on finances, and then incubate next on the specific piece to the career, the specific job. So you might kind of create a hierarchy according to which things have the greatest impact of those interrelated elements. That's what I would say to any coaching client as far as how is breaking it down. You could ask a bigger question. I think that you might get more symbols in the dream if you ask the bigger question that encompasses all of those things. And then it may be a little bit more challenging to parse out the meaning and interpret. So I would probably recommend breaking it all down into steps first before I would ask the big question. But what you could also do is create your hierarchy of importance and impact, and then also ask the bigger question at the end of that. So if you have three elements, you do one of each of the three, and then you ask the fourth question, which is kind of the all-encompassing question. And that would also give, I think, some greater insight as well.
And one of the things that you have an example of in your book, which I thought was very, also very fascinating is the need to incubate several dreams until you finally get to an answer. Because you have in the situation where you have one dream that helps you, but then it's not quite the answer and it leads to another question, which leads to another question. So talk to me about how that would work.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what I was also getting at earlier when I said that the process was iterative. I think that there's a natural progression that we can glean from the dreamscape and from the symbols that we have in our dreams. And I think that that is highly contextualized and lends to kind of what you're saying. So that really works, I think, when we're digging into the self-awareness piece more so than the external piece. So the examples that we've talked about so far are things like career or making an interstate move. All of those things are kind of external things, although they impact our daily living and daily life. But really, I think what you're asking is the question that belies all of those things, right? Because the things that we do in the waking life are really an outgrowth of who we are as human beings and our degree of self-awareness that we have unto ourselves. So all of that really informs the choices that we make, which informs the outcomes, which informs the externals and what we see as an external in our life. So when we use the iterative process to really hone in on self-awareness first, it does become very iterative. Let me think of an example. Let's say we have someone who is afraid to swim in the ocean. We might ask the question, what is my fear of the ocean? We might make it very general. And then you might have a dream that shows a bunch of sharks swimming around, right? And then we might say, well, what is the symbol of the shark? The second dream would address the shark itself. And then we might look at some of the symbology or the mythology behind sharks, culturally speaking. And we might look at maybe formative experiences the person has had around sharks and how that informs their belief system about sharks. And so then once we get to kind of that second layer, we might look even a little bit deeper. Well, are those beliefs, are they true beliefs? Are those beliefs an outgrowth of something that happened? You know, I think every kid, right, is terrorized by Jaws. Any kid who had seen the movie Jaws would be highly afraid of swimming in the ocean. I remember seeing that movie at a formative age. I was probably, 8 or 10, and never wanted to go swimming again. But then once you get beyond it, you can kind of look at what is driving that fear, right? Was it something that you actually experienced that created a primal instinct and a response to that? Or is it just a faulty belief that was built from maybe something you saw somewhere else or in an advertisement or something somebody told you one time or right? All of those things could be kind of like the third layer down into what is this fear of swimming in the ocean. And it could be something altogether different. So when we look at the iterative process, we're peeling the layers of the onion to get at what is this core thing and what is driving, in this instance, fear of swimming in the ocean. And you don't always get the answer in the first dream. I think that that's normal. I think that given what we know of the psyche, I think that that's probably more often than not what we would see in the majority of people.
Mm-hmm. So it is a process that, in other words, don't give up the first time you try to incubate a dream.
That's right. And when I'm working with new clients, actually, I always give them a cushion of 2 to 4 weeks, actually, because when you're working with these questions and you're really kind of setting up a dialogue between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, that it takes a little while to get comfortable in that space and to really understand, what the process is and feel comfortable enough that you're open enough to receive whatever response is going to come through or whatever symbols are going to appear in the dreamscape. When we're dealing, as you say, with some very painful things or scary things, we kind of have to look at it almost like a layer of trauma, and the unwinding of trauma can be lengthy sometimes for people. So when you're approaching it that way, we're really peeling the onions of the layer even a little bit more slowly, I would say, and also being more nurturing in the process, allowing people to bring in more of the emotional elements to dreaming and really working through those as well, alongside working through the symbolism of the dreams and what the dream means. So it really, again, I think it really comes back to, it's highly contextualized. It's highly individual. We're all such different people with different experiences and such a myriad of ideas and beliefs that when we really start to self-reflect and use the incubation process to self-reflect, we're all going to have such different experiences and answers too. So it's always fascinating. It's always fresh and it's always new. And everybody really can glean something different from it. It's really, I think it's an exciting process for sure.
And talk about learning something new. I was very intrigued with this whole idea that you can use dream incubation to kind of access the shadow part of yourself. So tell me how that would work.
I love that. That's when I work with clients, that's really where we start to dig in and do the real work. And when I say the real work, I mean the real growth oriented self-analysis that's required for lasting change. And again, a lot of that comes back to what some of those formative experiences are. What lives in the shadow, from what I've seen with my clients, is typically the limiting beliefs, the faulty beliefs, the things that maybe a lot of it comes back to childhood, the ideas and the beliefs that we've formed in a faulty way during childhood, because when you're young, you don't have access to the same level of executive processing and ability to rationalize, but also to work through emotions and the complexities like you do when you're an adult. So what ends up happening is as a child, we often assign faulty conclusions to different experiences. And so when we do that, then what happens with those faulty conclusions is that we create kind of these layers of faulty beliefs that then inform the way that we think and the way that we behave, and then the way that we execute action into the world. And so when we can use dream incubation to look at what is in shadow, I always see that the limiting beliefs and the faulty beliefs are typically not known to the conscious mind. We really have to dig at those things and really uncover them to say, oh, that's why I did that. Oh, you're right. That's the idea that's been running behind the scenes they're most often unconscious until you actively try to uncover them. And so in working with the dream incubation process, we're really looking to uncover those parts of the shadow, the parts that are unknown about ourselves, the limiting beliefs that we don't have conscious awareness of, the faulty conclusions that we've made as children that are informing all the choices that we make in adulthood. And that's really, I think, where I see the biggest growth with people and the biggest potentialities, because when you have these limiting or faulty beliefs that are informing your choices, you're probably creating certain things in your life that you may not necessarily want, but you're not necessarily sure how to change. And so becoming aware of what's living in the shadow, all that stuff that's in the shadow that's unknown, when we become aware of it, then we can take actionable steps to make different choices because we have the conscious awareness to then choose a different pathway. That's the part that I love the best, actually, about using incubation, is not just the fun thing of saying, oh, tonight I'm going to lucid dream, and go to the Himalayas and hike Annapurna, but rather where can we gain the most growth through the process so that we can really work in the waking life to live our best lives in that way.
Yeah, and that's why dream work is just so important. And I've got so many more questions I could ask, but just have time for this one.
Sure.
Kelly, how can people find out more about you and your book?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. So people can reach me at kellylydick.com, KELLYLYDICK.com. The book is available at retailers worldwide, any of your indie bookstores, bookshop.org, Amazon, any of your brick and mortar stores. If they should have it on the shelf, and if they don't, they can certainly order it. You can also get details at purecarbonpublishing.com or link up with me on Facebook, sign up for my newsletter. You'll get a free downloaded MP3 for dream incubation when you sign up for my newsletter. And anywhere you can find me on the web, I'm happy to link up.
Wonderful. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today.
Thank you so much, Debbie. I really appreciate your time. It was a great conversation.
We've been speaking with dream expert and author Kelly Lydick. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. If so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio.